I want to talk about Andy Dalton. And I know I'm late, but at this point, it was either talk about Andy Dalton late or literally not talk about it at all. And so the Dallas Cowboys have signed quarterback Andy Dalton. Remember, if you're not quite sure, you heard that name. Andy Dalton was the Bengals quarterback for the last 9 years, the starting quarterback in Cincinnati. And when it was first announced that Andy Dalton, as a free agent, signed with the Cowboys, people were like, what? The Cowboys? A lot of people seemed surprised. To me, it made a lot of sense. In fact, I made a video talking about where should Andy Dalton go. And hey, lo and behold, one of the teams I mentioned was the Dallas Cowboys. It made too much sense to me. They need a backup. They're not sure about their starting quarterback. He's from the area. And Andy Dalton, you got to realize, he grew up in Texas. He went to school at TCU, which is in Fort Worth. Fort Worth is right next to Texas. It's Dallas, a couple suburbs, Arlington and Grand Prairie, and then Fort Worth. They're right next to each other, like 30 minutes apart. I personally, if I were to live in Texas, I would live in Grand Prairie, Texas. I'm weird. I love the suburbs. It's probably my favorite area in Texas. So basically, Andy Dalton, the Texas kid, went home to play for the Dallas Cowboys. I think it's actually kind of cool. He even owns a home in the Dallas area. He literally doesn't even have to move. And so for Andy Dalton, he had nowhere else to go. If he was going to sign a deal with one team, the Dallas Cowboys made the most sense. He signed a 1-year deal worth $3 million. Now, he could make up to $7 million in totality if he gets on the field and meets a couple of incentives that he could, lined up, where if he does this or that, plays a bunch, yada, yada, he'll make even more money. Now, there are two things from, I think, the Cowboys' perspective that make a lot of sense here. Number one is, I want to be very, very clear. A lot of people, I've seen so many headlines. Is Dak Prescott going to lose his starting job to Andy Dalton, this and that? No. The Dallas Cowboys are bringing in Andy Dalton to be their backup quarterback. But the reason why this made so much sense for Andy Dalton is because Dak Prescott, the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, has a bit of an uncertain future. And so Andy Dalton, no matter what team he was going to go to, he was going to a team as a backup. The Cowboys actually might be the best opportunity for him to possibly get on the field of anywhere he could potentially go. Now, maybe, people think that, and I'm not even saying it's possible. I think that there are people out there that say it's possible that Andy Dalton could replace Dak Prescott. The reason why that's not going to happen, even if I think Andy's a better quarterback, which I'm not really convinced he is. I think they're pretty close. But Jerry Jones, who is the owner and operator of the Dallas Cowboys, is very sentimental. He gets really attached to his players. He's not going to replace Dak Prescott. Now, all that being said, Dak Prescott is in the middle of contract negotiations. And in case anything goes wrong, Andy Dalton is an incredible second option at quarterback. One of the best probably in the entire NFL. If you're going to have a guy that's not your starter on your roster, Andy Dalton might be the best backup in the league. He's been a starter for years. He's made it to the playoffs. He's won a lot of games. I believe the Cowboys intend for Andy Dalton to be their backup quarterback. But in case he's needed as a starter, in fact, if there isn't ever a situation where Andy Dalton needs to get on the field, Andy's solid, and he's cheap. He's $3 million, maybe $7 million if he plays a bunch. That's great. This deal, Andy Dalton to the Cowboys, it works for everybody really, really well. Now, Dalton gets to play in his home state. There is a chance he can play more than any other team, and the Cowboys got a really cheap backup plan. Andy Dalton is a contingency plan in case, for some reason, Dak Prescott does not play for the Dallas Cowboys next year. And honestly, he's the best contingency plan available. The Cowboys needing to play is not a bad option. And I think Andy Dalton and Dak Prescott are a similar talent level. It's kind of crazy that they got Andy Dalton as cheap as they did, given that Dak Prescott's considering signing a massive contract. I'm like, is there really that big a difference between Dak Prescott and Andy Dalton? I don't think so. But to be very clear, Andy Dalton is a backup in Dallas.